What's it like for these men? What's it like for them to be LDS and have such high values and have so much stigma?
It's tough to have same-sex attraction and be an active member of the church. One of our major goals is to make it okay to have the attractions and be LDS. A lot of them come into the group scared to death. They're scared of themselves. They're almost afraid of their own shadow. So many times they have a lot of shame associated with that. Self-shame. Most of the time they don't like it. It was not their choice. It was not something they want to live with, but it's the reality of what they have to live with.
You're saying it's not just about sexual self-mastery then?
No, our focus is a lot broader than sexual self-mastery. A major focus of the group is sexual identity issues. I've learned that God loves me as I am, where I am, and that is sometimes just so difficult to get to that point. I am loved as I am. A very basic question that many of our men have is there a place for me? Do I belong? I seem like the misfit. And one of our major messages is yes, the church needs you desperately, just as you are, with your skills, your talents, your abilities, the special skills that God has given you.
Do you just support them being sinners? Do you just let them be sinners?
I take umbrage at the comment.
I mean, the only way we know, all of us in the smart world, that's the only way you can have a room full of gay guys not feel guilty is if you give them permission to sin. Otherwise, you have to shame them into proper behavior.
No.
Talk me through the inaccuracies of my thinking.
You make the assumption that some of the men make and that a lot of members of the church make, and that is that it is sinful to be gay. It is sinful to be attracted to the same gender. And it is not. It's normal, it's common, it's healthy, misunderstood, but I can't change it. I'm not supposed to change it.
So what's the sin?
There isn't one. The sin is in assuming I'm sinful in an area that I'm not.
But aren't all life change resources programs designed to keep people from sinning? Isn't that the point?
I think Karen would take umbrage to that as well. No, there's
I'm trying
nothing
to
wrong
live
with
off
them
some
with
stereotypes here.
with the,
Let me live in my jaded world.
Yes, most of them do have an addiction to some type of sexual behavior, which is not congruent with the covenants we've made. That doesn't make us any different from the men in Sons of Helaman or men of Moroni. We're no better or no worse than anyone else in the rest of your programs. Yes, we are an addiction recovery program, but the more important element is we are helping people be comfortable in their own skin, in what's natural and normal, but can be very shame-filled. I don't have to feel shame in myself. That is an empowering place to be. And then we can look at the addiction issue, if there is one, or however it manifests. There are some excellent organizations for helping men come to grips with being a member of the church and being attracted to the same gender. I'm thinking specifically of North Star. But the attraction to the same gender and at the same time, let's look at sexual behavior that's out of line. To my knowledge, we're the only group that does that.
So I have another naive knuckle dragger question.
Okay.
So, how do you know when they're fixed? Well, I've got all these people out here that the only reason they're on the internet looking for a service is so they can get people fixed. How do you know when they're fixed? And or what's wrong with my question?
They ain't broken.
But
There's nothing to fix.
they're sinners.
No. No more or less than mankind are sinners. Sexual desires are natural, normal, and it's okay to struggle with them for a time in your life. Many men do.
When does a man feel complete in his participation? Like, when is a man done?
We realize if men can articulately talk about, feel through, understand their experience without shame, without worry, without terror, when they feel a sense of belonging and comfort and community in their ward, when they can talk to someone and of their own volition feel like, hey, I can't disclose this element of my personal life without having a panic attack or having like a vulnerability hangover the next day, or say, actually, but also I don't need to because this isn't the biggest deal of my life. And then also have some level of confidence and competence within their own like sexual behavior and mastery. Then we encourage them to like okay, go, like, be free, flap your wings, like, connect with people around you, bless the world, and then come back if you ever need a tune-up.
Yeah, we had one man that, after he'd been coming for several months, he said, "I want to come out to the group." we all just laughed because we're all there because of our attraction. He said, "But I've never done that before." And it was a growing experience for him. Coming out is a completely personal experience. It is not something I will ever push you to do, encourage you to do. It's a decision that, if it's right for you, God will lead you in that direction. And we've got men who, well, they'll come out to their close friends or their children or their spouse even. Maybe I can come out to a good friend here. Then next thing I know, they're getting up in Sunday school, and just as part of the conversation, letting the ward know.
Forrest, in your short life, you've had lots of experience with different cultures and philosophies, and deeply ingrained in the LDS culture, and you've expanded your horizons. Talk us through how the spirit of these meetings compares to all your other exposures.
I think one of the first things that affects how they're different is that we vet the people who get to come into the meeting, because we do know that it is a group of gay men, and so we don't want predatory people to come in. For this population, I've seen something sort of similar with North Star, but without the element of, we also expect you to like live some of the sexual standards, and discuss that and say, no, actually, like, this is a standard. We're not just here to make you like feel like you belong. We also want to help you meet your goals for what you believe you should be doing and living. And so in that sense, it just feels like it's warm and welcoming and accepting and also empowering.
How do you keep the meeting from becoming a dating group?
Well, for one thing, we are separated by a lot of miles. We have men that live north of Seattle and south of Atlanta. By and large, we're very widely spread. We've talked about man crushes, and what do I do if I've got a crush on someone in the group? But
You just put it right there on the table?
we put it right there on the table, talk
It's not
about
like we
it.
can ignore it. When you see someone making cow eyes and someone else is talking, it's a little obvious. So it's not like they're not discreet. So, but it's okay to talk about.
So you
because
just like discuss it?
crushes
right there?
happen.
Isn't that embarrassing?
I mean, if you're poor at facilitating a conversation, it can be. But if you have like a network of trust, and like there's like an environment of safety and like a spirit and like preparation for like, hey, like let's do XYZ to get more clear, to get more present with ourselves, and then go, oh hey, like I think I might be indulging in some fantasy and like exaggerating some of like, oh, like the moon sparkles when they smile, and then if we get honest with ourselves, and the moon doesn't actually sparkle when they smile, and like they're not stars actually gleaming in their eyes, and we start to see them more as real people.
How does that help them outside of your room?
Because they take that when they have crushes on their bishop or elders quorum president or
The men in the group develop very close bonds of friendship, and for some of them, it's the first time in their life they've been in a relationship with men where there isn't any unspoken sexual attraction going on because of the honesty that's there. And it's interesting, most of the wives, after the men have been 2 or 3 times, start insisting that their husbands come, rather than saying, don't go to that group anymore. It's like, I like you when you come out of that group. You better not miss it tonight.
Well, I'm going to express my gratitude to both of you. I have a strong desire to serve a broad population, but I know my limitations. I know what I'm not capable of, and it's not just your own personal history, but it's also your intelligence, your sensitivity, your awareness. I've learned a great deal from both of you, watching the way you handle situations, what you taught me about people in general. I've learned how to give hugs correctly.
Although you were a slow learner.
I'm from Idaho. Okay, I have an excuse. But I've learned a lot about male bonding. I've learned about not fearing people, not fearing the unknown, and I'm more skilled at what I do because of my association with y'all.
Thank you.